Wild card series are done. After an exciting round of games, the divisional series are underway. Some managers have stepped down and might more be on the way. It's been another exciting week this week in baseball. I think we got about as good of a wild card series as I really think you can ask for. We had 3-game threes.
Right, I think it's not the first time that happened in this format.
We had 3-game threes where they were between between division rivals. We got great games. I think you really can't. If the MLB wanted to say, "Hey, this is why we expanded the playoffs," they got the perfect reason to do it here. And I think having them be only 3-game series and them only taking in the space of like a couple of days,
3 days,
helps a lot. It makes it feel really quick and punchy.
And it's better than the 1-game series that we used to have for the wild card.
So
right?
much better.
Which is, although I will say this, and somebody wrote this about, how the Mets fans probably feel like, gee, we used to have a playoff game if teams finished with the same record, like the Yankees and the Blue Jays did, and the Mets and the Reds did. You'd have a 1-game playoff for it all. But they obviously did away with that when the last collective bargaining agreement, where they basically said, we're not going to play those games. We're going to go by head-to-head and then division records.
Tiebreakers, yeah.
So they didn't do that. But to me, I think those signature games are worth keeping to a degree. It's fine that the Mets didn't make it. That's actually not my point.
No.
My point is that I think those games would be cool if they played them on Monday, right? Because they had an off day before they started the wild card.
And that's like your punishment.
Yes.
If you finish tied, is that you're going to
run around the country and play the other team and then fly again and go
play another game.
Play 3 games on the road. Remember
4 games on the road,
right, possibly, right. If you're the other way. So I think that's been lost a little bit. And we said this before, the division series started. I thought it was best of 7, and you corrected me and told me it's best of 5. And I'm like, ooh, I'm surprised, right, that MLB we're not going for the extra 2 games.
It's a good thing. I really think having the division series be best of 7 would be a bad thing for baseball. You would end up with too many times where you would have 3 series that are finished and then 1 series limping it out for a while. And I think that you would just end up with a lot of, because you can't start, like, how unfun would it be if both of the National League division series wrapped up in 4-0 sweeps, and then they're waiting on game 6 or 7 of the American League series?
I don't know. I'd be willing to tolerate that. And I think that once expansion happens, and we likely, this is my opinion, go to a 156 game season, only because that's the way the math works out when there's 32 teams. We did this in a prior episode where we said this many against these guys and those guys, and you end up at 156. Those 6 fewer games will have a lot of impact, because I think it'll allow you to play 2 more games, in the division series round.
You'll be able to play 2 more games,
and the revenue's there. And I don't think the players will really mind playing 6 fewer games. The owners might mind getting 6 fewer gates, but I
just worry with 7-game divisional rounds, it'll lead to a lot of uninteresting playoff series.
Well, think about, I'll go back to the NBA. The NBA does it. They're all 7-game series after the initial series. So there's 3 7-game series.
You see the issues that causes sometimes where you're all kind of...
guys are waiting.
Guys are waiting a lot. You'll have people have 10+ days off during the playoffs. And one of the things I like about the division, the wild card rounds, is it's games every night. There's always games. The division series, they can kind of keep it on track. If you went to 7, you're going to have a lot of nights with either no baseball or 1 baseball game.
I find myself, because, the games are on late, the last game, and I really followed the wild card. I was following every game of the wild card. I never do that. Right. All 4 games, on the 2 days. And in fact, to the point where I would do it. I'm turning into my late father-in-law, right? So I decided to go to sleep. I record the end of the game, get up the next morning and watch it in real time, fast forwarding through the commercials and stuff.
You avoid the internet.
But I'm experiencing the moment in a way that I don't know the outcome, so that's really cool. I don't look at my phone or anything like that, and I think that's the way to watch baseball. If you don't stay up late and you want to really feel what it's like.
You talked about that with the Dodgers-Reds series, that you watched that last Dodgers-Reds game, and it was an 8-4 game. The Dodgers handled the Reds, I think, is probably the best way to describe that series. The Reds put up...
They dominated the Reds mostly.
Right. But they in the 8th inning, you had TJ Friedl come up with the bases loaded. It was 8-4. It was looking like, okay.
And I felt it. I felt like, wow, this guy could get a home run and tie the game. And then what do we have?
Right. But if you weren't watching the game, it just ended 8-4, and the Dodgers did handle that series, and it was pretty easy for them, and it kind of went as expected. especially when Hunter Green didn't go out there and basically pitch a gem in Game 1.
Yeah, and of course, Shohei Ohtani hitting a home run to start the series.
That kind of told you what was
the portent of what's going to happen. But you're right. You don't, if you just look at the scores and you try to follow what happened in the game after the fact, you didn't feel the tension of the moment. And I think you didn't feel that TJ Friedel mode. I was like, wow, I didn't think it would even get to this point, that particular series.
And I think if you're the Reds, you made the playoffs. It was a good season. I imagine for your fans, it's a little bit of a whiplash of like, we finally made the playoffs.
And now we're gone.
And you lose 2 games and you're done.
Right. And so I guess for them, it would be a good season. Whereas had the Mets been the team that got it and lost to the Dodgers, which would have happened, I think, in 2 games, I don't think. What would the Mets fans feel like? Oh, I'm sure glad we made the wild card to get our butts kicked.
I think it's kind of interesting though, because how good of a season this is for the Reds depends a lot on how they do next year.
Right.
You need to build on this. This has to be the next step into now competing in a very tough NL Central. You got 2 other good teams in there, but you're going to have to now make consistent moves towards being a playoff team. Otherwise, this was just a year you slipped into the wild card.
You need to build a bullpen for the Reds, right? Better than what you've got right now. I think they've got good starting pitching. Everybody would agree with that. The individual players they have on their roster in their lineup, I think there's a lot of good players, although I think you were saying that if Ellie De La Cruz is your best player, the question is that good enough if you're the Reds? Ellie got off to a great start this year, but ended up with 22 homers, and I think he tied for the National League lead in steals with Juan Soto, which is
stunning,
unbelievable, at 38 steals. And he plays a serviceable shortstop, but he's not one of the best.
Serviceable is doing a lot of carrying there.
So I think, if you're the Reds, you've got Terry Francona. You don't know how much longer he's going to manage, right? The guy's, 66 years old. Liked his choice. You know how much I like Terry, and I think he did a lot for that franchise. I think he's got another year or 2, but they're going to have to actually do some stuff if they're going to be better than they were last year.
Right. Either some player that we're not expecting has to take some kind of a jump, or I don't know. I don't know what's going to fix it for them.
So since we jumped into talking about the wild card series, let's stay in that, because we have some funky news items to talk about as well. The Cubs got a win in the series, and they needed that win, right, to validate the whole Craig Counsell thing.
Going after Kyle Tucker,
right? And the games being in Chicago were meaningful.
It was great atmosphere. You love to see that.
Right, and so they got the hitting they needed, they got the pitching they needed during the wild card series. And if you're the Padres and AJ Preller, I think you thought you might have had a team that could get on a roll and go all the way to the World Series this year. And so you lose in 2 games in the wild card series. Now what do you do?
The experiment is running out of time in San Diego. The players, a lot of your better players, especially your pitchers, are starting to get up there in age. You only got so many more years where Darvish is one of the guys that's going to be a lead guy in a playoff.
He didn't look good in that series.
Right. Machado is starting to get up there. He didn't have a great,
but he had a good season.
He had a good season, great postseason.
I mean, he had a good season, actually.
Right.
He came on in the second half of the season and had a good
but,
season.
And Tatis, you got Tatis, you've got other pieces there, but you've got a team that's got a lot of money tied up in older players. It's not going to be easy for you, like the Mets, to get better. You're not going to be able to go out and sign a bunch of guys to fix things. Now, maybe you will, because AJ Preller kind of seems to do that.
He is magical that way, and I think you make a good point. You've got Bogarts. You're paying him a ton of money. You're stuck with the guy, and he had a good season, but not for the amount of money you're paying him.
And it's unlikely he's ever going to play at a level where he's worth the amount of money you're paying.
It's hard to live up to that. That's at least they got him playing shortstop, where you're paying him that way.
Right.
You got Jackson Merrill, who I think we both would agree is one of the best young players
really good
in the National League. So really like that player.
So you've got your cornerstones in your outfield.
You got players.
You got players, but
like Cincinnati, you've got individual players, better than Cincinnati.
Right, much
players.
better than.
But the whole mix hasn't come together, and you wonder why. They had like one of the best bullpens, despite the loss of Jason Adam. Right? You've got Suarez and guys that throw 100 miles an hour, up and down the lineup.
Score.
Mason Miller, was ridiculous, but he couldn't pitch every game.
Right. And it doesn't matter if you don't score in the postseason.
And they didn't, and that offense not scoring, is that a testament to great Cubs pitching?
I don't think so.
I have a hard time with that. So
the Cubs pitched well, but I think that the Padres team has had difficulty delivering in the postseason multiple years in a row, And when it's a mojo problem, that's not nearly as easy to fix.
And my friend Tom's a big Padres fan now that he lives out there, and they were frustrated with the Padres in some of the same ways we were with the Mets. Like you're kind of like, yeah, but and that's
right. The only difference between the Padres and Mets is they made the wild card. I imagine, and how their fans feel about the team. Where it's like, yeah, we've got some good players. We like some things about them, but there are clear holes on this team that are holding us back.
Well, and to boot, they got to decide to sign Michael King or not now, because he's done,
and he's going to be a gem on the.
He's going to be a big salary. They've gotten nothing out of Joe Musgrove for like 2 years now.
They got the magical start against the Mets in the postseason a couple years ago.
Yeah, but since that time he's done very little for them. So Blake Snell is going to come back and be one of not Blake Snell. He's with the Giants. Sorry.
Yeah, he's on the.
My mistake.
Yeah, no, he's on the Dodgers.
He's on the Dodgers, right? He was a Padre. Who's the other left-handed pitcher they have in their starting rotation? The Padres. I'm forgetting.
Pivetta. I know they had Pivetta.
Pivetta, but he's not a lefty. So I think they're going to have to overhaul the pitching staff, particularly, and as I said, in signing or not signing Michael King. So I think there's going to be a lot of change in San Diego.
Oh, there's definitely going to be a lot of change. Much like I think there's going to be change. When we're looking at these, we go over to the American League. I think you're going to see changes in Boston land. Not managerially, but I think they're unhappy with the state of that roster. You're bringing back Tristan Cassis. They were talking about moving on from Jarren Duran, and I gotta think that they're going to try and make a move somewhere with him involved in order to.
Got to get a pitcher for him, right? I would think
you got to get another pitcher to go out there and run alongside Crochet. I feel like, because you got a nice year out of Brian Bello. You're hoping for more out of
Bello's a good pitcher.
But like, there's still too many guys in that starting rotation that you're just like, every time you're running them out there to pitch.
Right, and you don't have that young up-and-coming starter the way other teams do. The Yankees, threw in Cam Schlittler, and he was unbelievable in the last game. We'll talk about that in a second.
We'll talk about him in a second, yeah.
And the Blue Jays, here it is on Sunday, and right now they're playing the Yankees. Talia Savage is looking unhittable, and of course, he is pitching against a team the Yankees have never seen him before. That's kind of a fun thing to unleash, at this time of year, going, what the heck are you seeing out there?
I imagine if the Mets had made the postseason, being like, okay, we're going to run Nolan McLean out there. You've never seen him before.
That was such a pipe dream.
Right.
But, I think that, the Red Sox are going to have to, they certainly lost a lot when they lost Roman Anthony. I like the individual parts in that team short of adding more pitching. I think that's really what it comes down to.
I think the other thing you have to be nervous for the Boston Red Sox is you got a magical season out of Aroldis Chapman this year.
Yes,
one that's kind of hard to believe that you got.
Well, he figures something out,
right? Is he going to be able to do that again?
Yeah. This was the season that I think put him into. Maybe he's a Hall of Famer too. Right. He's a Hall of Famer,
right? And especially if he has another season like this, he's almost
he's 40 years old. And he's throwing 100 miles an hour still.
Right. So amazing. And apparently the changes that they made are the types of changes that you think, as long as his arm holds up, he can keep doing it.
So, but give the Yankees the credit. Like I said, the start that they got in Game 3 from Cam Schlittler was one of the best postseason starts you'll ever see.
There might not be a happier person in New York City than for Cam Schlitter start other than Aaron Boone,
who grew up in Massachusetts, by the way. Did Cam Schlitter?
Aaron Boone's job might have been saved by winning that game. Well, I think we could go into talking about the Yankees. Well, we got to talk about the Guardians and the Tigers.
Yeah. Let's do that first. So, how about the way that the Yankees and Red Sox series ended? Mm-hmm. Right, so it's Game 3. Who's the last guy up? I forget who it was, and he pops up, and toward the third base dugout, and McMahon runs over, and he catches the ball and falls into the Red Sox dugout. Series over, Red Sox lose. Now, here's Ryan McMahon laying on a bunch of Red Sox in the dugout with the ball, and I'm sure he's thinking, and the Red Sox are thinking, what do we do? Do we beat the crap out of this guy? He's in our dugout. We just lost. We don't like that. And what is this like? And McMahon's all, I want to get back with the other guys.
He's like, I want to get out of here.
This is not where I want to be. We just won. I want to celebrate. This is not the place to do that.
Like when you walk into the wrong class, like all of a sudden everybody's head whips around and looks at you like, what are you doing here?
Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. Pardon me. Excuse me.
Need to go.
He gets out of there. So, and the Tigers and the Guardians, that was a great series.
Great.
Even though it was only 2 games. It was
all 3.
3 games. It was 3 games. It was just really contested, all the way, down the line. Right.
It was a replay of a series we saw last year where the Guardians came up on top last year over the Tigers. This year, the Tigers, I hate to kind of put it this way, but in a lot of respects, saved their season by winning that series
Agreed.
against the Guardians. They were 15 and a half games up in the American League Central. Lost that and choked it away in a choke that basically, by the grace of God, saved themselves from the worst choke ever in baseball history.
It's still kind of the worst choke.
It still kind of is. But then you got to play the Guardians, who edged you out for the title, and you beat them.
Well, and here's the weird thing about the way the Guardians and the Tigers went down. The wild card series was played on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The prior Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they played each other in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
The prior Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to that, they played each other in Cleveland. So 3 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays in a row, they played each other over 9 games.
And I hate to do this to a team that
it should have been a playoff game.
Right. I hate to do this to a team that had a great season, had an unbelievable run to the playoffs, and surprised everybody by getting there. But you have to think, if there is a candidate for regression next season, the Cleveland Guardians are like the most prime candidate to have a terrible year.
I think I said that about them this year, though.
Well, no, but in terms of, they should have. By all metrics, they had a negative run differential. They played an unbelievably hot brand of baseball to just squeak into the playoffs. It's the kind of things that you're like, unless there are major changes, the things that led them to needing to do that, needing to play at an unbelievable clip to make the playoffs, are still there, and they could very much come back in a bad way next year.
You know, and we quickly forget that Emmanuel Clase, who was the class of the closers in Major League Baseball, among the very best out there, was all of a sudden off the team, didn't pitch again. He might never pitch in the major leagues again, as they're doing a gambling investigation on what he was involved. I'm not thinking this guy's coming back to the major leagues.
He's not coming back with the Guardians.
And he's probably not coming back with them. So when you survive the loss, I'm trying to say, of your closer like that, and they had guys step up, you know, and do that. And I thought Cade Smith, what is it? Yeah, I think he, the relief pitcher, they were able to plug guys into the bullpen and get it done. Most teams cannot do that.
Right. And it worked this year.
So
whenever you have teams that play that kind of baseball where they don't score a lot and they happen to get great shutdown, lockdown bullpen, that is just a team that could be a 75-win team next year.
You know, they trade Naylor, you know, Bo Naylor, and really the only offensive players, you know, on the team, obviously Jose Ramirez, a future Hall of Famer, but when your second best player is Stephen Kwan, who's we'd like to have nice ball player, right? A guy you'd want on your team, you know, all that kind of stuff, but he shouldn't be your second best player. And I think they need to get some help from guys that aren't named David Fry and Daniel Schneemann. These are, again, nice players, but you need like some star power in there to give Ramirez some protection in the lineup, and not ask those two guys to carry the offensive load.
Right. You got a year out of Kyle Manzardo where he hit 27 home runs for you, but he also batted .234.
Yeah, they need to make some changes. I think Stephen Vogt has been a good manager for them, but I don't know, with an ascending Tiger team, it looks like still, despite the fact they choked away the lead, and a Royals team that, you know, underperformed this year. That's a tough division, like you said. Just like
right.
You know,
right. We rag on division so much for being easy or hard, but both of the Centrals I think are a lot better than we gave them credit for, specifically at the start of this year.
So let's talk. We'll go to the what's going on in the division series and talk about those matchups. Just wanted to talk about some of the managers,
right? Because there are still some baseball news for teams that aren't in the playoffs. Skip Schumacher is now signed on to be the new main manager of the Texas Rangers, and he signed quickly.
He was a special assistant in Texas, and when Bruce Bochy, I thought they said he stepped down. It's not looking so much like he stepped down now. It looks like
they asked him to step down.
They don't want him to manage anymore, and they want Skip Schumacher to manage. And I think changing the mojo there is fine for them to do. I mean, he got the World Championships for them in 23. They had a pretty good year, maybe a very good year from Jacob deGrom, losing Eovaldi and Corey Seager. All that was too much for them to bear in the end in terms of having them come back. But I think a new voice is probably a good thing for that organization. But guys that didn't survive are the Giants' Bob Melvin, and the Twins' Rocco Baldelli. Both of them got fired after the first
Baldelli makes sense just because the Twins are in teardown mode, so you're going into a rebuild. It makes sense to bring in a new manager anyway to manage that. Baldelli will probably find a new job, maybe not this year.
Not this year. He's got to go in the booth for a year.
Right, or go do something else for a year.
Do TV for a year, and then you can do that.
Cleveland's going to find another job.
I don't know. There are a lot of people like him. I think I'd put him someplace where, you know, we don't know what the hell we're doing as a franchise, and we need someone to take the job who's going to make us look like a real franchise.
And I think speaking of managers, kind of looking at them, Brian Snitker quicker step down in Atlanta, but that was something that he'd been with the organization for almost 50 years.
Yeah, and I thought it was an interesting time for him to step down. He is about 70 years old, and I think it's a good thing. I think for that organization.
From what I heard from Braves fans, it was time for a new voice in that locker room, and that there's a lot of questions going into next season for Atlanta because there's a lot of ifs and question marks all over the roster. Is Michael Taylor the guy he was in the first half? Of
Michael
the second?
Harris.
Michael Harris is Ozzy. What is Ozzy Albies now?
Besides an older ball player?
When Spencer Strider comes back, is he the Spencer Strider before the injury, or the guy we kind of saw?
Schoenweiss is good.
Right.
Not Schoenweiss. Schellenbach. Yeah, there was a Scott Schoenweiss, by the way.
He's coming back from injury.
Right.
Right. But you have to worry with
Chris Sale's going to come back.
We saw him come back this year, and before he got hurt again, he wasn't the Spencer Strider that was looking like a Cy Young guy before that.
I will be very uncomfortable not picking the Braves to do something, though, when we do make our picks next year.
I think you said, but with a new manager at the helm, you're hoping that you can get a fresh voice.
And I have no idea who it's going to be. Freddie Gonzalez has been, knocked around a little bit. I don't know about a Brave guy that comes back in the organization. Andrew Jones isn't going to be the manager of the Braves.
Chipper out of the booth.
Or chipper out of the booth. Ali Marmol's going to stay in St. Louis. Well, you and I both never understood what it is about. And by the way, the Cardinals.
You must know where the bodies are buried.
Well, the Cardinals had a rough year in attendance. I only mention this because they had 628,000 fewer fans go to home games this year than they did last year. That's 4,200 almost fans a game fewer. Steeper decline than the A's and the Rays, who moved to minor league stadiums. So, basically the Cardinals, who have the best fans in baseball.
Not this year, clearly.
We got to do that. And Ali Marmol and the team kind of bounced along. And did they overperform to stay in it as long as they did? And so he gets credit for that.
A team that finishes multiple games under 500 doesn't get to talk about overperforming.
So I don't know what's going on there. Ron Washington of the
Angels.
Not
great baseball. That's what's going on.
Has been asked not to come back there. I don't know if it was mutual or not. He was sick, obviously, and he probably is okay to manage now, but at 74, 75 years old, although his name has come up for a couple of jobs, including Atlanta. I don't see them going from one old manager to another one myself.
That doesn't make any sense.
So Torey Lovullo is going to stay in Arizona. I didn't really think he was in trouble, but I guess when you make the World Series and then you don't make the playoffs a couple of years in a row, all of a sudden it's like maybe it's the manager. So and Don Kelly is going to come back in Pittsburgh, which just means he did enough to make people forget the fact that Derek Shelton didn't have any players to play with when he was managing the Pirates. And he had the same players, and he did better.
Problem.
So yeah, really the problem. I also noted before we go into the division series, and we'll talk about the Phillies to start. And they're playing the Dodgers, and they had 31,000 fans show up at Citizens Bank Park for a scrimmage, an inter-squad scrimmage on Thursday this week. And I'm going to. So if you did that at Citi Field. Just going to say this. How many people show up for a Mets inter-squad scrimmage? Do you think
at least 25,000?
Yeah, okay. I guess you think. So why don't teams do this, by the way, when they're waiting? Because I think that's a fantastic idea.
Well, because the Brewers did it. I just don't know if they had people come in. I saw highlights from the Brewers doing their scrimmage. They don't just.
And these are competitive games. They're trying to simulate game conditions.
That's the thing. They don't do this at literally any other point in the season than this specific spot. So that's why you don't see it at any other point, because there's literally 4 teams.
I think the Dodgers didn't do it because they were playing a series.
Exactly. I'm sure the Blue Jays probably played an inter-squad scrimmage, and I'm sure the Mariners did too.
I kind of like to watch Shohei pitch to Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, and Shohei. Oh no, you can't pitch to Shohei too. That doesn't work.
Yeah, you pull the old Bugs Bunny. Let's get into the division series here. We've got 4 really good ones. Let's start with the game that's going on right now with the Blue Jays and the Yankees. One game has been played. It finished with a win for the Blue Jays.
No, not a win. That's a thumping, by the way. 10-1,
But it got out of hand late in that game.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays haven't had, obviously, a lot of postseason success in recent years, and that place is raucous, by the way. So I'm impressed at how the fans are turning out and really, making it loud and miserable for the Yankees.
Early in game 2 here. The game's not done as we're recording this.
Max Fried gave up a home run to Ernie Clemens, his first postseason home run, a 2-run homer.
Obviously, I think the Yankees are going to show some fight. I wouldn't be surprised if they came back and won this game or just came back and made this a competitive game. But I think, obviously, if they lose this game, I don't think they got a shot in the series.
Yeah, you think going down 2-0, they
2-0
can't
with
win?
Fried having pitched? No way.
Well, I think that's the key thing is they've got their ace on the mound today, and going down 2-0 has to be a big deflate. We'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see what happens here, but I think it's interesting because we talked about managers getting fired, and do you think any of the managers in these divisional series? I mean, we can look at the two managers here in this. Do you think Aaron Boone is on the hot seat if the Yankees lose?
I think both of those managers, John Schneider and Aaron Boone, if their teams lose, could lose their jobs following
Yankee
the season.
fans have wanted to move on from Boone for years.
Yeah.
And from
they love to hate that guy.
Right. And from this position, if the Blue Jays somehow blew this series,
well, I don't know if you blow the series when being up 1-0.
Well, up 1-0 ahead in this game. If you lose this game and then you go on to lose the series, Schneider could be in trouble. But I think he's most likely.
He's been on the hot seat too. Like the Toronto fans have been waiting to get rid of him for years.
He probably saved his job.
Aaron Boone, the same way.
He saved his job this year probably by going on this run, winning the division, and making the playoffs.
But it's a 5-game series. The Yankees still have their secret weapon in Cam Schlittler, ready to go. But the Blue Jays have, they have a lot of good pitching.
Really good baseball for a long time now. And
still think their bullpen's a little iffy. But then the Yankees bullpen is probably a little iffy. Right. So that's
that's. And then you go over to the other series in the American League, and the nightmare is beginning to unfold in Seattle.
Why?
Because you got to face Tarek Skubal in Game 2, down 1-0.
That's a problem, and you're at home, right? So
right. So you're now facing, we got to beat Tarek Skubal to make sure we don't go down 2-0 and then go on the road.
You had George Kirby cruising along a 1-0 lead.
Right. And then
in the sixth inning, Kerry Carpenter comes up and I think they even flashed it on the screen during the game that Kerry Carpenter was 4 for 10 off of Kirby in his career with 4 home runs.
Well, he is now 5 for 11 with 5 home runs.
And he said, don't throw him a pitch you can hit. No, you throw him a pitch.
And they talked about that. Yes. That he was trying to pitch around him, and he threw one.
Now, he threw a pitch high in the strike zone. He tomahawked the thing over the right.
But he crushed that.
He hit it a million miles, and they held on.
And you felt the air suck out of that stadium when that happened.
I did, and you also saw a lot of balls. This is what I get watching the playoffs over. A lot of balls in that series hit really hard, like to the fence. Parker Meadows is back to the fence making a catch, and the right field is back to the
Seattle.
fence. It's like, I'm sorry. Well, Parker Meadows is.
That's playing in Seattle like that.
And then line drive to Suarez makes the catch. Line drive at Munoz falling away makes the catch. So everything was being caught, and the same thing with the Tigers. Catching balls that are hit hard by the Mariners.
Game 1 can pretty much be surmised as I think Julio and Cal Raleigh were like 6 of 11.
Summarized, yeah.
Where the rest of the team 0 for 28.
Yeah. And so I think we talk about you got to hit the ball hard, you got to have exit velocity. You still got to hit them where they ain't.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the little bloopers that go over the shortstop that are hit the other way are more valuable than a 113-mile-an-hour line drive that the third baseman caught us an out.
And much like the Blue Jays series over in the American League, the Brewers came out and just took the Cubs behind the woodshed in Game 1. That game was over before it started.
I didn't watch the first inning.
You missed the game.
Not only are you right, but I guess by the time I saw something, it was like the first inning, and I saw Soroka. I'm like, they started Mike Soroka? Like, why would they do that?
I just felt disrespectful.
But it wasn't him. They started Matt Boyd, who just got hammered.
Right. 9 runs in the first 2 innings for the Brewers, and that game was over before it felt like it even got started. And I thought it was interesting because one of the things we talked about, leading up to this is do the Milwaukee Brewers have enough hitting to be able, because so much of what people talk about is the teams that win the home run battle in the postseason win the vast, vast majority of the games. And the one thing you could say about that Brewers lineup is they're not a lineup of thumpers. Nope. They're not a lineup of home run hitters. But I don't think this Cubs starting pitching is good enough across the board to shut down this Brewers lineup where they would need those home runs in order to put runs up on the board.
Oh, Justin Steele, where are you now?
Right.
And the Brewers, have to take special pleasure, right, in beating the Cubs if they can. And Craig Counsell, their former manager, who left them to go to Chicago and get paid the most money a manager ever got. And to beat them at home, it's got to be so sweet.
Right. I don't think either manager in that series is in danger, nor do I think either manager in the Tigers or Mariners series. The Tigers manager probably saved his job by
AJ Hinch. I think they like AJ Hinch
by not blowing the lead.
Yeah.
If you had blown the lead, you probably lose your job for that. I'm sorry. It's really hard to be the manager of a team who has the greatest collapse in baseball history and not lose your job.
And they are off until Monday night. They're going to play tonight. And Churio, who was 3 for 3 in the game and got all 3 hits in the first 2 innings, came up with a hamstring tweak, and so now we're not sure of his status for the rest of the series.
Right, that's the kind of injury that doesn't cost them this series.
Yeah.
It's the type of injury that costs them the next one.
And he's such an important part of their offense, as you said, which lacks some power.
And he's one of their better guys.
He's one of their better power hitters. So yeah, that's a concern. But Milwaukee is in real good shape as they go into Game 2.
And you had the Dodgers. It looked like the Dodgers were going to kick around the ball and ruin an otherwise great start from Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, it wasn't really So Shohei struggled when he walked a leadoff guy and he gave up a couple of hits. They scored a couple of runs on a base hit, and then Teoscar booted a ball in right field, which allowed a sacrifice fly to be then hit on the next one. So that's how the third run scored, and they maintained that 3-0 lead, and the Dodgers held the deficit. So Shohei goes 6 innings despite that. So he's sort of stepping up.
He stepped up, but then Teoscar Hernandez comes up again.
So Teoscar Hernandez makes an error. They score a run, a sacrifice fly, and the third run, he strikes out 3 times. So he's up in
Comes
there.
Up in the
There's two guys, on base. Like, it's been a horrible game for him. He hits a game-winning, essentially 3-run home run to go from a 3-2 deficit down to the 5-3 final score, which was saved by Roki Sasaki.
Right, who comes in, who looks like he's all of a sudden figured it out. He's out there pumping it 101, throwing nasty splitters. And so it was really cool seeing a Japanese pitcher start that game and then get the save.
Yes. And no relief pitchers pitched in that game, really.
Right, because Glasnow
pitched and Sasaki pitched. They're all starting pitchers. So you know what? Here's how we cover up our bad bullpen. We just don't use it.
And so obviously, I don't think Dave Roberts is any danger of
no,
and I don't think Rob Thompson is any danger of
no. I mean that to me, that's the heavyweight series right there. The Dodgers Phillies.
It's the one team that the Phillies can lose to and be okay with it.
But I would be shocked if Monday night, if the Phillies didn't win Game 2.
Oh, yeah.
I would be shocked because, you got to make it a series and then go back to L.A. and try and win one of those games.
Sure. And so looking forward here at the rest of the playoff, what's the thing you're most excited to see coming up here?
I'm excited to see if Shohei Ohtani can maintain, the hitting, because when he pitches, he doesn't hit at all.
No,
it's really weird, and he bats all the time, but he's like a different guy when he's on the mound pitching. It's really interesting. I want to see if he can get back to his hitting ways now that he's not pitching.
I have to say, I'm really excited to see Skubal pitch tonight. I want to see Tarek Skubal going up against the red-hot Mariners lineup up until this series. I want to see in that place. I want to see it. And he loves being the villain. He's gonna love going up there and shutting up Seattle.
And wasn't it you who said that Seattle has had some decent success against Skubal this year?
He pitched up against him in one of the opening series this year.
Oh, okay, that's a long time ago.
A long time ago. They faced him twice. I've scored he's not pitched 6 innings against them. They scored 5 runs and 4 runs in the 2 starts against him. But this is a big game, and so far we've seen Tarek Skubal is a big game pitcher.
And I watched the end of that game last night in the 9th inning, 1 out, nobody on. You're up a run, and Cal Raleigh's at the plate. You're thinking, okay, this is it. This is where it's going to happen.
And he just doesn't.
And he swings at the first pitch, which is a flopping slider sitting on the top of the zone saying, hit me, please. And he hits it. Unfortunately, it's just a little pop-up that the third baseman puts away, and Raleigh just is staring out into space going, I can't believe I missed that pitch.
Yeah.
So, I look forward to having him have his moment in the series as well, because
he's running out of time.
He's had the series. He better hurry.